again. Today we're going to discuss about how to keep the tenants for longer in a property, and we're going to look at a few statistics and a few things that are happening around it, what the factors could be that influence people to stay or to leave your property. So here are some very interesting statistics. People aged between 18 and 24 will stay in your property for 1 to 2 years on average. And people aged between 25 and 44, it's about the same. So basically this group of people who have no commitments, so only if they have no commitments, the last group, the 25 to 44, will have the same moving rate only if they don't have children. And a third group that is not there, because I haven't actually been able to see any statistical data, are the families and the single parents, because those are less likely to move. I'm pretty sure that a family with children doesn't actually move every 1 to 2 years, because it's much more of a hassle for them to change schools and to move everything and the furniture and all of that. So a family is less likely to move. And the least likely to move group is people aged from 25 years and older. So they move every 6 years. So basically, when these people get to the age of 45, they need more stability and they are not as likely to chase jobs and dreams and travel around the world. So they prefer to settle down in a place. An interesting fact is that the population who is currently renting is getting older. So in 2018, it used to be that the age between 25 and 34 was the biggest age group that was renting, was in the property rental, but people cannot afford to buy houses anymore. So right now, all of these people who cannot afford to buy houses, or maybe they just don't want to settle down in one place, they prefer to rent. So now the biggest sector of people who are renting are between 35 to 49 years old, and they are 3 times as many people in this group that are renting compared to 20 years ago. And it's because of the house prices in the UK. So those are the most interesting statistics. So now that you know these statistics, you can kind of know what to expect from every age group. So this can kind of give you an idea of how much effort you have to put if you rent to someone between 18 and 44. Then you're gonna have to look for tenants more often. You might have more gaps in between the tenancies, more void periods. So if you have to choose between a tenant who's older and one who's younger, you might want to look at the older people and have those on top of your list. Okay, and now I want to go over some tips on how to keep the tenants longer in your property. And I'm going to tell you this from my experience as well as some statistics. The renewal of agreement. So if you have a tenant that was in an agreement for 12 months and now it has expired, if you do not renew the agreement, they are basically renting on a month-to-month basis. So it's called a rolling monthly contract, and they still have the right to stay in that property and their lease is still valid, but they no longer have the obligation to stay. They can just give you a 1 month notice or 2 months notice and they're out. But if you renew the lease every year, they are committing for another year and another year. So that's how you keep them in the property. But you shouldn't be too pushy about that. That's how you keep them in the property. Okay, and if you can, when you sign the lease before they move in, you might want to push for a bit of a longer lease. You might want to get them to sign it for 1.5 years or for longer. and you can show them that if they sign for a year and a half or for 2 years, then they are guaranteed to have that rental price for 2 years or for a year and a half. And if they don't, when they have to renew it, they might have an increase in rent. So you can sell it like that. You can say, if you sign it for 2 years, you are guaranteed that your rent will not be changing for 2 years. Okay, and that might scare them off. It might not work, but what I suggest is you shouldn't be too pushy about this, because 2 years ago when I moved in my property, I have actually found the property that I liked more from a different agency, and they were so pushy about signing a longer lease, and I really didn't like that. It just put me off, and I didn't want to get that property anymore because I didn't like the agent, because he was too pushy about this. So I decided that I am not going to move forward with that particular agent. So you have to know that if you are being too pushy, even though your tenants might like your place more than someone else's, they might not sign just because. Other tips are to not change the rental amount. So if you charge more rent, maybe your tenants will not be able to afford it and they might want to move out. You want to watch out for that. So if you have good tenants, I want you to look at it this way. If you increase the rent and they are not happy about that and they move out, the void periods that you're going to have between maybe 3 to 6 months, void periods, depending on the area where your property is, you are going to lose a lot of money on that. So, even 1 month of rent is still something that you only get to recover in a year. So that void, you don't want that void. So you're better off if you don't increase the rent every year. So every year, you might consider increasing it every 3 or 5 years, but not every year, because your tenants are going to be put off. I mean, unless you don't like your tenants and you want them to move out, you don't want to give them a notice, maybe you can increase the rent to get them out of the property. But if you want to keep them, you should do the opposite. Okay, and one more thing is repairs and maintenance. If your property is not in good shape, even if the area where your property is really good, people who live in nice areas, they have expectations. They want the property to look nice and to feel at home, and they don't want the headache to have to deal with all the workers coming in their house and having to contact electricians and plumbers to do the repairs. They want the landlord to take care of everything as fast as possible. Now, you have to be careful here. If there is a repair and a maintenance issue that can have a big impact on their life, then you should definitely do it as soon as possible. But if it's something like they want some furniture changed, something that is more like just them being fussy and not actually having a massive need for something, then you shouldn't, because as soon as you do that really quickly, they're going to come back and ask you to change something else. If something literally just broke, like the shower or anything that they actually need and is not working, or the tap or anything like that, or the heating, you have to fix it as soon as possible. So yeah, that's all I wanted to tell you about this, and well done for sticking until the end. And now I'm going to leave you so you can watch the next video and see how you can move forward from this point. Thank you. If you like this video, come and join me on the 5-day property management course. It's a free course and I've designed it especially for you. See you there. I will leave the link in the description for you.